This isn't going, is it? Live video is starting. Hello and welcome, fellow sovereigns. I found out yesterday that the word senility originally was a compliment. It was basically for an older person who had reached a stage of maturity and wisdom, someone who was respected in the community, someone that you would go to, a wise mentor. And so it's like an elder, as we might say nowadays, someone of standing. And to me, it's a bit of a shame that such a word with a lot of respect has now been reduced, and it's almost like an insult. Someone who's senile now is someone who's lost their marbles, dementia, and all that. And so, of course, the whole dementia, senility, Alzheimer's thing, there's plenty of jokes about it. I mean, there was one about the lady in the retirement home, and she went up to this chap and she said, George, I've figured out how to tell people's ages. She said, I can tell you exactly how old you are. And George was impressed. He said, my gosh, how can you do that? She said, all you have to do is take off your clothes and turn around 3 times. And George said, and so you can tell me how old I am? Yes, she said, if you do that. So he took off his clothes and stood there naked and turned around 3 times, and she was looking. And he said, so how old am I? And she said, tomorrow, George, you're going to be 85. And he said, my gosh, Doris, how did you know that? She said, you told me yesterday. So anyway, we do make jokes about the losing of the mind. And I remember Somerset Maugham said, they told me that when I got older, I would lose my mind. What they didn't tell me is that I wouldn't miss it much. And so as we get older, we realize there's so much stuff we don't need to know. And we kind of almost don't care about a lot of things, because once we reach a certain stage in life somehow along the way, we realize that fashions come and go, and we don't get caught up in them. We don't get caught up in the latest economic theory or the latest political this or the latest whoever's in power and whatever irk is running the show. They will be gone and there'll be another irk running the show. So we kind of don't care about politics and fashion and economics. Everything, it just kind of comes and goes. And that's that kind of wisdom thing that I've yet to get there, but I'm feeling it kind of approaching in a sense that we're just unmoved by the transience, by the transient fashions and ideas and philosophies. And for example, there's a guy called Greg Braden. He's an amazing guy. He's a scientist, ex-NASA, I think. He's an amazing scientist who's kind of bringing science and spirituality together. And he does lots of videos and he's very good at the promotion and writing books and doing talks and all around the place. And he's showing us how science is finally, very slowly, catching up with what we already know. And a lot of people just think Greg Braden is amazing, and they follow him and, oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this new thing? This, da, 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 da. And I'm afraid, I think he's an amazing man, and he's doing a brilliant job on the planet. He's really waking a lot of people up. But for me, in my dotage and my senility, so much of what he comes up with, it's like, well, yeah, we've known that forever. And people come up with all these wonderful theories about what happens after life, when we die. And it's like, did you hear about, and it's like, yeah, heard that, been through that phase, heard that one before. And it's not like life gets boring. It's just that the transient kind of doesn't matter. And all we're left with is this sort of abiding peace and, dare I say, wisdom that everything will come and everything will go, and even this body, it'll go to the worms, whatever. And I think it becomes harder and harder to move a lot of older, not all older people. Some are still stuck in the following the news and following the newspapers and worrying about this and fretting about that, and so they are moved by the little things that go on, and the neighbour who's, I don't know, cut their hedge too low, or someone's parked in the wrong place, and I don't know, George Bush said this and Donald Trump said that, and I don't know, all that little stuff. And so there's many older people in that phase, and they would not be what we would used to have called senile. The senile ones are the quiet ones who just quietly, oh yeah, there we go again. There's another political theory with a different face on it, a different body saying the same stuff. Oh, I've been through that one. Yeah, so what? And so there's this kind of abiding peace, this abiding, just a tranquility that kind of passes through everything. And so older people become harder to convince of, you must follow this, you must do this, you must do that. It's like, yeah, so what? And we don't care that others think we're old-fashioned, if you like, and we don't hook into this new, I don't know, computer system or this new phone app or whatever. We don't care. If you think of an old fogey and an idiot for not following this thing or not doing that, so what? Now, one of the things that's come up recently, or probably in the last 6 months, people have started looking at a lot of things that are banned on this planet. And it almost seems like everything that's been sold to us as bad is actually good for us. You know, you shouldn't have salt, you shouldn't have meat, you shouldn't have fat, you shouldn't have tobacco, you shouldn't have all of these things that we shouldn't have are actually essential to our health, to our mental and physical health. And one of them is tobacco. And of course, the modern cigarette has, I don't know, has dozens of other chemicals in there. Sugar, for example, to get you hooked into it. There's sugar in all cigarettes. There's lots of other things in there. So I'm not advocating smoking cigarettes. However, nicotine is a totally different thing. Now let me go back. So our nervous system is based on a lot of nerves. And for example, the longest nerve in the body is the 13th nerve, and it goes from kind of the back of the top of the spine all the way down our spine, right to the bottom, sort of through the coccyx and then back up to our voice box. And so if we damage our 13th nerve, we can't speak. And I'm sure in that big trail it does other things as well, but its function is the voice box. It affects the voice box. And so we might imagine that that's one long piece of tissue, nerve tissue, whatever you call it, but it's not. It's hundreds of tiny little increments, little discrete pieces of tissue, let's say. And each one is encased in this myelin sort of sheath, which is sort of protects it from, when they get hit, damaged, it protects it. And so you've got all these individual nerves, and between each nerve piece, shall we say, there's a gap, a hundredth of a millimeter gap. And so as the message from everything we're doing, because at the moment you've probably got thousands of messages going through all of your nerves. You're watching this, trying to absorb the information, and you're probably thinking about the sex you had last night, or the groceries you're going to get to this afternoon, or you're twitching your foot and you're scratching your head and you're thinking about this. So there's lots of stuff going on, and it's very busy. So each time there's a message going through a nerve, it goes along the tissue as a chemical reaction, if you like, in a chemical way, and then it has to go across this gap like a spark plug. And so the chemical reaction has to turn into an electrical message to get across the gap, and then it turns into an electrical one as a chemical one. Sorry. So it's constantly going from chemical to electrical to chemical to electrical all the way through, and that's how our nervous system works. So if we watch a lot of TV, the beams from the TV interrupt the conversion of chemical to electrical. It slows it down, and then you know that if you see somebody who watches TV for a long period of time, or someone who watches TV constantly, they're not quite with it. Especially after several hours of television, someone sort of gets up and it's like takes a moment to get kind of back in the day, back in their body, because their nerve messages are slowed down because of the, I don't know what it is, it's not x-rays, but it's some sort of rays that come from TV that slows our nervous system down. And so the messages going from here to there to wherever take a long time. And so if someone says something, it can take a moment or several moments for the message to get in and to understand the question and then to come up with an answer. And so that's going from chemical to electrical. And then of course, and so what fluoride does, it does the same thing with the electrical to chemical. It slows that electrical to chemical reaction down, and so it slows our reactions. And when after the Second World War, they found that a lot of the Russian prisoners of war were being fed huge amounts of fluoride. And the reason is that fluoride dampens down the ability of a person to think, quite literally, on a chemical level, if you like, chemical/electrical level. And so we're very compliant when we have a lot of fluoride. We don't have the ability to stand up for ourselves. We don't have the ability simply to think and process. If someone says something to us that's a little bit insane, if we've been watching a lot of TV and or we've had a lot of fluoride over our lifetime, we don't have the ability to process it and go, now is that insane, or is it right, or is it wrong, is it logical, is it morally, is it legally? We don't have that ability because our nerve system has slowed down so much. And so people become more compliant. They just take on what they're told because their reasoning has gone. Their nerve stuff has sort of disappeared. So the opposite happens with nicotine. And as I said, I'm not talking about tobacco because there's stuff in that. But nicotine does the opposite. It actually speeds up our nerve endings and it makes us more coherent to ourselves. We can hear, in a sense, if something comes to us, an idea or something that's new or whatever, we can quickly process it and go, oh no, it's not right for me, or that's a good idea. We have the logic. And so nicotine increases our testosterone level and it makes us much less able to be swayed to something that is not right for us. Now, is that a surprise that they don't want us to have tobacco or nicotine? Yes, they have labelled nicotine for the last 100 years as being this evil stuff because people stand up for themselves when they have nicotine that's not diluted by the chemicals in the modern cigarettes. So it's kind of connecting this senility that when we are senile, when we are, if you like, the wise elders, which I've yet to get to, we're not swayed. We know what's truth. And if you think about all of the indigenous races throughout history, for thousands and thousands of years, they have smoked something. And what they smoke, inhale, is actually something that increases the ability to think for themselves and not be swayed by fashions and all sorts of things. And thank you, Lynn. You've said that fluoride affects the pineal gland and shuts it off. Absolutely. Yeah, and which is the pineal? Is that the one in the up here? The third eye? Yes. So fluoride does a lot of terrible things. um, yeah. So yeah, the pineal gland as well. Pineal. Well, anyway, one of those things. Pineal. Lynn spelt it, and I can't even say it. So I've become. It's my Alzheimer's kicking in. So it kind of fits with the idea that, and it tends to be those older, wise cultures that are not swayed by the current theories and the ideas of all of this sort of, what goes into the body and all of that. And so I just have this lovely knowing that I'm approaching that time, that I'm going to be unswayed by all the stuff that's going on, and people are getting all caught up in this. We had this Trump and Biden chat the other day. Who cares? Who cares? It's just two guys talking. And then it's a whole lot of other people talking about two guys talking. Who cares? My day's fine. The sun is shining. There are a few clouds. My lovely car out there, it still goes and it's shiny and it's, like, my world works. And I don't care about two guys talking in some other part of the planet. Let them go. Go for it. Knock yourselves out, people. And I think if we are to start to stand up for our truth, one of the best things we can do is write a list, or write two lists. Write a list of all the things that they say are bad for us, and write a list of all of the things that they say are good for us, and then swap it over. So, for example, they have this health pyramid, the food pyramid, or whatever they call it. All of the things that, the base things that you must have lots of this and a little bit less of this and nothing of this. The pyramid's upside down. And I've heard this from so many people, including my chiropractor, who said that the food pyramid's upside down. And he suggested to me that what I should be eating is nothing but red, fatty meat and green vegetables. No carbohydrates, no fruit, all this 4 fruits a day and all the rest of it. And so they say that's good. Turn the pyramid upside down. Turn everything upside down. And whatever they've said has been bad for us. Salt, we need salt to process the water and other things going in through the cell membranes. We need salt to activate our cells. Otherwise, we have water in our body, but it's sloshing around between the cells. So we need water, and we need magnesium, and we need salt, calcium chloride, to have that water go into our cells, and the other nutrients go through the membrane of our cells. So we need salt. We need fatty meat to cook with. We should not be cooking with olive oil, because when it's heated, then it does bad stuff to the body. Olive oil is wonderful as cold on your salads. Don't heat the stuff. Burnt olive oil ain't good for you. But they tell us it's great. Have lots of olive oil in your cooking. No! And when we do this list of all the things they say are bad for us, what we start to realize is they are the things that are good for us. Nicotine, salt, fat, and all of these other things. And they're trying to get us to eat, insects, for God's sake. We can't eat insects. Our bodies cannot absorb the chitin that insects are made of. And also insects have lots of parasites that we cannot process. We do not have the enzymes and whatever it is that deals with the parasites that insects have. Insects can deal with them. We can't. The dumbest thing out. We're not built for eating insects. We're omnivores. Vegetables and meat. And so the world's upside down. And when we step back into our senility, when we step back into our just knowing, we know this. We know the simple truths. And they've been trying to talk them out of us for, probably a century now. And so what I wish for you today is just the two lists. Write down all the things they've told us are bad for us and all the things that are good for us, and go through that list and then swap it over. It's a wonderful exercise because we'll find that everything they said was bad for us is good, and everything they've said is good for us is bad. So I wish you an upside down day. And I wish you senility and a bit of jollity and a bit of